usually in math, you guys year after year are learning just a little bit more about a topic. When you were in the first few grades, you kind of learned a few new things like, well, multiplication, and then you learned about exponents, but you haven't learned a lot of new concepts in a while. Most of your stuff has just been refining and maybe complicating stuff a bit. In the last half of chapter 5, you're going to learn a new concept, so that's kind of exciting. And the beauty of it is you won't have to guess when you're trying to estimate or trying to determine the value of an exponent anymore, and you won't even have to use a graph like we did for the first half of the chapter. So that's kind of cool. What Get Started talks about is it's kind of setting you up for where we're headed in this chapter, which is nice. They give us this graph and they ask us how these two lines are related. This line is y equals the square root of x, and this line is y equals x squared as long as x is positive. As you can see, they're inverse to each other, which remember means that y equals x. So there's a y equals x line up the middle. They're a perfect reflection over that line, and you can see from this point, 2 and 4, 4 and 2, that the x and y values have switched. And if we wanted to take that concept just a little bit further, I could use one of these equations and I could switch y and x, so I could make x equal to y squared. So I've switched them in the formula. This is just a review. And then I would have to isolate for y, so the next step would be if I want to take the square, or I have to get rid of the square, I have to take the square root, so I would take the square root of this one to get rid of that square, and y would equal the square root of x. That's the formula down here. So in both ways, whether we manipulate the formula by switching x and y and then isolating for y, or whether we look at the graph and see that the points are switched, or we just look at it visually and see that they are mirror images of each other over the x equals y or y equals x line, these are inverse functions. Now, that's going to lead us into a little bit more complex thought in construct understanding, but that's pretty much what they wanted you to understand here, is that we've got a relationship where we've got an exponential relation or equation here and the opposite of it down here.